We're going to take you through a little timeline from Trump's departure from the White House and the classified information. Now, we start right here. One day before the president left the White House, he issued this memo. Trump was declassifying certain materials related to the FBI Crossfire hurricane investigation. What could that be? Now, I want you to keep this in mind because President Trump has claimed that everything the FBI sees has been declassified. Is it maybe this? Well, once you see the timeline, I think you're going to say, yeah. January 20th. He leaves the White House. Okay, he declassifies all the Russiagate stuff. President Trump's chief of staff said most of the Russiagate documents had been sent to the DOJ for redactions. But as per Newsweek reporting, 27 boxes of material had been sent accidentally to Mar-a-Lago. Remember, this was not the political people. This was the GAO, the Government Accounting Office. They're the ones that packed everything up. So there weren't any political people. Well, this kicked off conversations between Trump's team and the National Archives to find out what needed to be shipped back. So let's jump ahead to this year. In January, Trump team transferred 15 of the 27 boxes. They went to the National Archives. Now, some of those reportedly were marked classified. We still don't know, if they were nuclear secrets or not. But part of the documents we know were declassified back in January 2020. Remember this. It also shows that Trump's team was working with the government. So why would you take an ex-president and march people out for a raid? Well, getting ahead of myself, on March 24th, in the middle of all of this, Trump stayed on track. Yeah, this is what he was really concerned about. He filed a RICO lawsuit going after Hillary Clinton and everyone else involved in Russiagate. Getting justice for the collusion fiasco that had been constant. Now, I find it interesting that this occurred at this time. Why? Well, it was just a couple of weeks later, on April 7th, that it was leaked to the Washington Post by unnamed DOJ sources. Because, of course, the DOJ was investigating improper removal of presidential records at Mar-a-Lago. Now, that's crazy timing, isn't it? I mean, boom, boom. Trump was trying to get Russiagate documents declassified. Some went to Mar-a-Lago and some got sent back to the archives. Then Trump files a lawsuit regarding Russiagate. And the men in black start saying, well, maybe we should investigate because he's probably got nuclear secrets. In May, it was reported that the DOJ formally subpoenaed more documents. Something had them spooked, and I'm sure it had nothing to do with the RICO case, right? Consider that we're not supposed to notice all of these little coincidences here. They're convenient coincidence, but it's just coincidence. Now, you look at this timeline, which they don't want you to do, and you say, okay, all right, maybe. Then on May 12th, the Washington Post again had a leak at the DOJ. Unnamed sources, a tip at the DOJ. They were telling them now at the Washington Post that they were using a grand jury to issue a subpoena to the National Archives so they could see the 15 boxes that Trump teams handed over back in January. Now, why would they do that? Why would they need to issue call together a grand jury to read documents that Trump had already turned over to the government? Unless it was something they were afraid of. And I can't imagine what it might be. Anyway, on June 3rd, the FBI went to Mar-a-Lago. They got a tour of the vault where the documents were stored. I hope they had the ground steak because it's delicious. Anyway, the documents were stored. They looked through them. They were allowed to look through the boxes. Again, Trump is like, whatever, you want to go through the boxes. But after the DOJ looking through the docs at the archives, and now the FBI sending agents to rifle through the boxes at Mar-a-Lago, it looks like they're looking for something, you know, something that made them nervous. Oh, nothing's making me nervous. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Trump, clearly not concerned about anything he has had or had already given back to the government, is just standing there looking at them like they're a bunch of ridiculous apes. Now, here's where things start to get even weirder. On June 19th, Trump appointed former national security official Kash Patel and journalist John Solomon as his official representatives. He names them representative of the National Archive. Remember, for him. Remember, he had previously returned 15 boxes to the National Archives. The DOJ was concerned about them, going so far as issuing a grand jury. And now Trump was sending his own guys, I assume, to see if there was any funny business going on. Remember, Trump's primary objective here, and we saw that when one of his last acts was to, declassify all of the documents that would show any kind of collusion at all with the FBI, DOJ, Hillary Clinton, you know, any of those people, maybe Joe Biden. He would like them to be seen, but the government doesn't seem too keen on that. Now, just 2 days later, on June 21st, Trump kept on track. He continued his RICO lawsuit on Hillary Clinton and everybody else that was part of Russiagate. That same day, Kash Patel did an interview where he said this.
To identify every single document. I can tell you now that I am now officially a representative for Donald Trump at the National Archives. And I'm going to march down there. I've never told anyone this because it just happened. And I'm going to identify every single document that they blocked from being declassified at the National Archives. And we are going to start putting that information out next week.
Next week. It wasn't too long later that all of a sudden, mid-July, Garland starts considering a green light on the unprecedented raid in Mar-a-Lago. Again, the word of this evening's program is convenient. We all know what happened next. The FBI commenced with a raid on August 8th. 1 day after the raid, August 9th, the well-respected investigative journalist Paul Sperry was permanently suspended on Twitter for doing his job as an investigative reporter. He tweeted, investigators reportedly met back in June with Trump and his lawyers in Mar-a-Lago storage room to survey docs, and things seemed copacetic. Okay. True. Then the FBI raids weeks later. All true. Speculation on Hill. FBI had personal stake and searching for classified docs related to its Spygate scandal. Oh my gosh. He added then, in other words, the FBI might be covering their own tracks while using the Presidential Records Act as a pretext for the Mar-a-Lago search. What part of that got him shut down? By the way, do you know one of the guys that was working for the FBI and was part of all of this stuff? He's now working at Twitter. Isn't that weird? Sperry would later publish this piece revealing that many of the FBI agents that were involved with the Russiagate thing are now leading the investigation on Mar-a-Lago. Wait, did you hear that? I mean, it wasn't just me, right? Last week, August 17th, that's when he put that, because Newsweek also reported that the FBI was in search of documents that included Trump's collection of papers showing who was involved in Russiagate. Now, I don't know about you, but you look at the timeline, and it looks like they're looking for these papers.